is this really about stopping cartels or about control over Venezuela oil? And what does this mean for your trades? So this is what we're going to be breaking down. So for you guys that don't know, my name is Sakeem. Thank you guys for tuning in. So today I want to break down what is actually happening with the US and Venezuela right now. And more importantly, what could it mean for oil, gold, and risk assets if things escalate, okay? Because I want to get you guys prepared to take advantage of these fundamental reasons, right? So you could take advantage of a risk off market. Definitely could lead to some really good opportunities. So right now we got the US warships and thousands of troops are parked in the Caribbean under Operation Southern Spear, okay? Officially to go after narco cartels and drug boats tied to Venezuela. It's pretty crazy, man. Like, it looked like a movie, right? I guarantee Netflix is going to put a movie of this. So the U.S. has labeled Cartel de los Salos, a Venezuela-linked network, as a terrorist organization. And on top of that, Trump has ordered Venezuelan airspace treated as basically closed, which is a big escalation. There was on X a bunch of photos of you get to see how the planes are actually going, and you can just see like Venezuela is no planes going through Venezuela right now. Like, what you guys think? You think things is going to escalate, right? Because if things do, it's going to be a really, really, really good opportunity. All right. So just to brush these few things off, right? Just so you guys can understand, a naval buildup in the southern Caribbean with carriers, destroyers, and marines officially framed as a war on narco terrorists removing drugs in the U.S. So there's been strike on boats. Washington says that they're drug traffickers. So that's what they're really calling them. Okay, so those attacks that you see on the news headlines, all drug traffickers. That's what they're claiming for us. Okay, so now terror destination of the cartels, right? The de los Salos, and talks on border action against group linked to the government. So this is what we're going to want to focus on is right here. So on top of that, we've got heavy sanction regimes on Venezuelan oil. Exports has started to recover a bit when sanctions were eased, but new tariffs and secondary restrictions mean anyone buying Venezuelan oil risk could be getting hit with penalties and high costs from the U.S. So just remember, right, this is one of the things that the U.S. government use on other countries. They're using tariffs, right, to put pressure on other countries, and higher prices, right? So they don't have to physically go to war. They could just use tariffs and sanctions. This is one of the main things that's been going on. This is nothing new to Venezuela, but the cartel situation is new. But the sanctions on Venezuela oil haven't been new, but now this is going to be more eye-catchy, okay? So from a trader's lens, we got three layers that is stacking on top of each other, right? Legal pressures, so sanctions, terrorist labels, and tariffs. Military pressures, right? If we see warship strikes on boats, political pressure that openly talks about change or removal of narco tariffs. Okay, so that's what's really important. I want you guys to look at this right here, just so you get some few headlines. Venezuela accused the U.S. wanted to take over its oil resource because there's been conversations that they're trying to. This is not about terrorism. This is more about. It's not about the cartels. They're using this as a political play to just take over oil, right, from Venezuela. And they actually went for help for OPEC Plus, and I believe OPEC was just like, you're on your own type situation, right? So that's going to be pretty interesting to move forward with. And you can just see here, he threatens to bring war into Venezuela. So these are the things that we're going to be really focusing on moving forward for political, pretty much tradable ideas moving forward. So why this matters to oil? Because Venezuela sits as one of the largest proven oil resources in the world. The problem is years of mismanagement and sanctions already crushing is production. But whatever comes out of this situation, right, it could directly impact oil infrastructures, right? So things like export terminals, storages, etc., pipelines, so these are the things that we want to focus on, all right? So the reason why this is important to us is because this could lead to risk off situations. If things do escalate, what we want to pay attention to is airstrikes in Venezuela territory. We see even a wider conflict, like if other countries do get involved, right? Because the headlines and all of this stuff is cool. The fear of the headline could cause a risk off market. But for us to see continuations, right? This is why an actual war, boots on the ground, is going to be something that is a main priority for the stock market, okay? Because if we want the stock market to push lower because of these headlines, it'd be best to see if U.S. troops get involved. All right, makes sense, guys? So that's the things that we want to look at. But as of now, this is good for oil prices because when there's conflict and they impact oil facilities in Venezuela, it could increase the price of oil. All right, so that's what we will look at. Also, gold. Gold could also be a safe haven. So scenario one, we could look at, right? Control pressures. If the U.S. keeps up naval protocols, supposedly they're hitting drug boats, pile on sanctions. I think if that's what we focus on, if there's more sanctions on Venezuela, but if they try to avoid oil facilities, oil might rise a little bit, but it's not going to be anything massive. Like oil may react to the sanctions and the escalations, but might not be anything big because it already happened last week. Okay. Second scenario, targeted strikes near oil infrastructures, right? So if the U.S. start targeting, supposedly they say they're targeting terrorists, but they're hitting areas close to energy assets, right? This is where oil could gap higher from those type of headlines. Energy equities, right, could get very volatile. Equities will push lower, and we'll definitely see gold rise if we see target strikes. Okay, so this kind of happened before with geopolitical tensions, where I believe it was I believe it was Iran when Israel attacked Iran. They assumed they was hitting oil facilities. We saw that oil prices spiked, but then they came back and said they didn't attack those facilities, so oil pushed down a bit. So we're going to see something like that. The markets is going to react to the headline. It's going to most likely fear is going to drive the markets, right? Once the fact come in place, we can see the markets recover a bit. So that's what you focus on for scenario two. Scenario three is like a wider conflict, invasion risk. We see that Venezuelan exports gets disrupted by shipping, gets disrupted, stuff like that. Like other countries try to get involved, stuff like that would be something extremely important. Okay, so now let's just look at trade ideas, right? So just to help you guys out even more, one sec. Because I know most of you guys like trading oil. So we could already see so far when it comes to oil prices, we did see a little bit of upside ever since, like last week, the November 25th. We've been seeing some upside on oil. So what I would like to look forward to, right? Obviously, you don't buy now because most likely Trump is speaking around 5 p.m. today. So if he speaks at 5 p.m. today, I would like to see the support be held at 58.8. But if he does come out and he says anything regarding escalations, right? If he talks about escalations, any more conflict with Venezuela, that it even implements military action or sanctions on them, if he just comes out negative across the board, right, we're going to see oil most likely start breaking above $60 a barrel, and we could probably spike a little higher, at least to 61. Okay, so this is what I would like to see these areas of interest hold, right, and then push higher from those zones, and I will be looking for an entry at a break of resistance if that actually comes into effect. Okay, the problem is he's speaking at 5. It depends on when he talks, but if it does happen, right? If it does happen, this could be a good opportunity to pay attention to. All right, just looking at oil, you could take that spike higher. It's not long term because it's geopolitical tensions. So the conflict could be very quick. It may not react to the headline. It will probably wait until the actual conflict. Like if he says, "Oh, we're gonna bomb you," it may be a spike, but markets react better to the actual bombing, right? So there's something, if it's negative, expect oil prices to jump. It's gonna react to the rumor. All right, so take advantage of the rumor, then the fact we could possibly see some pullbacks. Okay, so that's one thing when it comes to oil, is start pushing higher. And just remember, this is just in case if we do get escalations. All right. Another option is gold. You can see that gold price action similar to oil, right? So if we see like gold doing the same exact thing, if gold could start breaking above 42.58, if we could get those escalations to come in place, we could see gold spike higher too. Because I like the idea of gold buys regardless from a macro perspective. You know, if we could get weaker dollar, weaker yields, does help as well. But the conflict also is causing markets to react to gold as a safe haven. So that would be another opportunity to be looking for gold buys, probably during Asian session if we see the conflict continues to cause problems. Okay, guys? Now, lastly, we're going to look at equities because the stock markets could react to this as well. You know, and specifically, we could look at NASDAQ, but this could go to any pair, or we look at US 30. You know, all of the pairs pretty much is going to react the same. You know, if we see that it's worse than expected, right? If there is military action, if there is going to be continuations of conflict, right, that requires the U.S. military to get involved. I think that's the only way the stock market is going to care, is if the U.S. military gets involved. And remember, again, it's not going to be long term. It's just going to be a spike. Okay, guys? So what would happen is you're going to see prices break lower. And once we break that support, you know, you could take advantage of that sell scout holding below 47,320, tagging this area around 47,120. Okay, I think that would be the best option if we see these escalations continue. All right, guys, but that's only if we see that the problems continue to occur. All right, guys, so I just hope that this was extremely helpful for you guys, because it's important to pay attention. But I want to know what you guys think. You know, what is the main goal of this, right? Do you think that this is all about cartels, or you feel like this is about oil and power? Because it's pretty interesting to me. I already know that the government, when they want us to look one way, it's because they're doing something else behind our backs, right? So hopefully this video is helpful for you guys and you can take advantage of some really good trades. If you find this breakdown helpful as a trader, please hit the like, drop a comment, man. Definitely everything you do could help this channel grow. Subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Have a good one, guys.